All right. Thank you for sitting down with us today, Dr. Brannon Donoghue. What do you do at Oakland University?
I'm an assistant professor in cinema studies program, so I teach courses on the media industries, I teach courses on global cinema, transmedia, storytelling, intro to film, all kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. So can you kind of explain what the Film Incentive Program is?
Okay. Well, in its current state, the Film Incentive Program doesn't exist anymore. But I can tell you a little bit about the history of it.
Yeah.
So it was developed and it started in 2007 over the former governor's administration, and it peaked in about 2010, 2011. And so they were giving what they called reimbursable credits, and so refundable credits. And so they would, like large shoots like Transformers or something would come in, what's another one? The Oz movie with James Franco would come in and they would get like refundable credit towards whatever money they spent in the state. And at that point in 2010, they gave, I think there was like $115 million spent here and credited back towards large productions. And so when the new governor, Snyder, came into office, he cut that back drastically. And so as of last year, there was going to be $25 million being invested in films, productions coming and shooting here locally. And unfortunately this summer, the legislature has canceled the Film Incentive Program. So while there are a number of films that are being still given the credits, still given the incentives through the next year or two or so, the program doesn't exist anymore. Mm-hmm. And the Michigan Film Office, which oversaw all of these incentives, it still exists. But what we're going to see now is a really large decrease in productions coming to Michigan, whether it's small independent films and large big blockbusters.
Mm-hmm. So why is it so important, or why was it so important that the state had this program? What was it that made directors want to come here?
A couple of things. I mean, Michigan isn't, on one hand, it's not the best place to film because in winter it's very difficult, right, to have outdoor shoots. Mm-hmm. But beautiful summers, I'm not a native Michigander, but from what I've seen living here, not only you get everything from beautiful natural lake, forest, any kind of outdoor set you want, to urban, city, suburban. So there's just a really large variety of places you can shoot here cheaply. And there's a crew set here. So there are people who work in films, there are producers, there are casting agents, there are location scouts. There's a good base of people who have professional experience who can easily be hired to work on $1 million indie to Batman and Superman like last summer. Mm-hmm. And so it benefits the area in a number of ways. One, think about all the money that these people spend. Batman and Superman for Warner Brothers is a huge production. They're bringing probably most of their crew out, but they have to stay in hotels. They have to go to the grocery store. They have to go to restaurants. They have to go shopping. So the money that's being poured into the local service industry economy is important. And then on top of that, you're training and hiring people in the local area. They're creating jobs. They're establishing this kind of creative industry center where Michigan, we saw just the growth of people from everything from like caterers to people like working on, like we were saying earlier, like location or production managers. Mm-hmm. And so it's building an industry here that wasn't there before, and particularly considering what's happened historically in this area, that relied so heavily on one industry, building other, the film industry, television, digital media, things like that. It's an investment in the future, and it's only something that pays off in the long term. And that's something that unfortunately the legislature doesn't see. They just see the short term. Yeah.
So can you also say, in addition to the money aspect of it, there's also kind of a sense of pride for the area too? They get to see, oh, my hometown's on the screen. Is that also something that's going to be affected?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because think about the popular images, particularly of the Detroit area, that are shown in media. It's like you see one thing, right? It's known for ruin porn. It's known for being empty. Whereas this whole state, this whole area is vibrant and diverse, and there are people having very different daily experiences that can be shown through film, that can be highlighted. People can work as extras. They can be involved in it either professionally or just for fun. Or it's also, it's definitely a sense of pride. Mm-hmm. It's something that I know I've talked to a lot of my students about, saying, oh, this shoot happened in my neighborhood, or this happened there. I started showing a film by a Michigan filmmaker, David Robert Mitchell. He did most recently It Follows, and it was this horror film, which I've been raving about to my students, which was shot in the area, hired a bunch of local crew, and students, there are people that I've seen from Michigan who watch it going like, that's my neighborhood, or that's where I grew up, and yeah, that's a big deal. It's important. I think it's important locally, and it's also important for the industry to see that you don't have to just shoot in Georgia. You don't have to just shoot in New Mexico or LA.
Yeah. So what were the side benefits of cutting the program?
So this is we can definitely frame this, and I've talked to my students about this, that it's definitely a political motivation, right? So it's it was a kind of a GOP Republican controlled legislature who saw this as supporting an industry that wasn't local, even though they are hiring people locally in some cases. And so the argument for this was that you would only see a certain amount of money back, say in investing in the local economy or hiring jobs, that you gave to them. And so they saw it as this kind of supplement or subsidizing of the film industry. Mm-hmm. And so, which, I get. I mean, we have bad roads. We need to put money into schools. We need, so there are maybe other priorities that hopefully they're going to focus on.
Yeah.
But, so that was kind of the argument for that, as well as it's long-term. And this is long-term versus short-term. So a lot of these jobs are short-term freelance labor. They are not long-term jobs. So when you hire somebody for a couple of months or whatever for a set, they're employed for that moment, but it's not, so it doesn't really affect the employment numbers, say, as an industry that you support and subsidize that is hiring people for the long term. Mm-hmm. And so I think that was also a complaint.
Yeah. Now, from my understanding of what I've researched, there's already been somewhat of a decline that local filmmakers have talked about. Mm-hmm. Do you think in the long run that's going to decrease the number of cinema studies students there are in this state? Maybe not in general, but the ones that come to school here, will that affect them?
There's definitely been a decline in productions starting since 2010, 2011, and the reason for that is these incentives are applied for and utilized over like multi-year kind of period, and so they many times, especially the big studio productions, they're looking for state economies and incentive programs that are stable, and they're looking for things that they know that they can count on 2-3 years down the road when they're actually here to shoot their film, and so they saw a big decrease because people just stopped applying for them at all. And they weren't that generous anymore. They weren't competitive with Georgia and New Mexico and other places. In terms, I can only speak for Oakland University, and I think we have a really unique program because we have production classes and studies, history, industry theory classes. And interestingly enough, our students do both. So we maybe half the program is focused on going into production, some element of production in the industry when they graduate, whereas the other students are going to use their cinema studies degree for something else. So will this affect students majoring in cinema studies? I think it's too soon to tell. I think it's going to require a lot of creativity and hard work on the side of the faculty and the students for finding other opportunities, because the good thing about the cinema studies degree is not just you get the degree, you can only do production. It's a humanities, it's a liberal arts degree where you learn skill sets that you can utilize in any profession.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, thank you once again for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Happy to help.
Yeah.